Hello and welcome to the Brass Junkies. I am your host, Andrew Hitz, and this episode was awesome. This conversation was awesome. This episode is awesome, I guess is what I should say, except for when we butcher and are long-winded on the intro, and then it'll be less awesome. But hey, welcome to the Brass Junkies. Lance, you're my co-host. How are you?
You said but hey. That was fantastic. That was one of my favorite interviews that we just did and you're about to hear. So I hate to speak of it in past tense, but man, it's a good one. I think you're going to really get a kick. Jim Nova, do not run while you are listening to this one because you will double over and get hit by traffic.
Hey, you remember Jim Nova? Yeah, it was like it was the Jonathan Dorn episode that that took poor Jim out. So
took him out.
We just spoke with Jonathan Dorn, who has he hasn't done too much in his career. He's only performed and recorded with Leon Redbone, Don McLean, Anthony Braxton, Wilson Pickett, Henry Mancini, the Philadelphia Orchestra, Ringling Brothers. Other than that, not too many names. So, and this guy's got stories for days.
Zippy the Monkey.
Zippy the Monkey, yes. Zippy the Monkey. Zippy the Chimp, right?
Zippy the Chimp, yeah.
I don't even know the difference. Don't email me. One of
them flings
Google
left-handed, one of them flings right-handed.
I can Google it. I just don't care. So, man, this is a good one. This is a really good one. You guys are going to like this one. So it's always the tuba players, man. Tuba players, I'm telling you. There's something about
solid
that.
Performers.
So, yeah. We need to, speaking of tuba players and geniuses, we need to thank Parker Mouthpieces for providing the hosting for the Brass Junkies. Wow. Parker Mouthpieces, which is the brainchild of Michael Parker, who is a quasi-genius, offers fine, customizable component mouthpieces for horn, trombone, euphonium, and tuba, including the Andrew Hitz Artist Model Tuba Mouthpiece and the Lance LaDuke Model Euphonium Mouthpiece. Find out more at parkermouthpieces.com or follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Jonathan Dorn just shared a story about us about partying with Belushi.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's like
Belushi,
this.
Chevy Chase.
Yeah.
I can't. I'm still processing it.
I'm still proud that we just hung up with him, and we're just like, wait, what? Yeah, good stuff.
Well, and then the guy has the gall to say like awesome stuff about us. Like I didn't know what to do with that. He's
more
like
than once. Yeah, it was just kind of like, yeah.
He likes us. I'm a pretty pony.
All right, tell the people about the Pappert folks.
People, Pappert people. We have Patreon, Pappert, Parker, all P's. So the Mary Pappert, I don't know what's happening. I do know what's happening. It's 9:45, and Daddy's up past his bedtime.
That's
so
about 3 hours past your bedtime.
Bring Mama her medicine.
That's why Lance doesn't play with River City anymore. It's because the gigs start after his bedtime.
Right. The gigs are at 7:30. I can't make it. Sorry, I'm gonna make it through Family Feud, but then. After that, I'm done. So the Mary Pappert School of Music at Duquesne University is a fine institution, a fine institution with a bunch of great folks teaching brass instruments there. I am one of them. Jim Nova has negotiated with them. He somehow has figured out a way to get them to be a sponsor, and we couldn't be happier. It's a fantastic school of music, great faculty, wonderful students, and some fine ensembles. You can learn more about the brass program at Duquesne University and the Mary Pappert School of Music by clicking on the link under the episode. Maybe it's under, could be next to, I don't know where it is, behind, near this podcast, depending on how you're listening to it. So thanks to Jim Nova. Good looking forward to, I really need to lay down soon. I'm like soon. Mommy, hey, do you smell toast? So I want to thank Jim, who has a CD coming out, an album coming out, I should say, of all of his overdubs.
CD? How old are you?
He has a 78 coming out, a box set of 78s that are coming out. if you go down to your local A&P and you buy a case of Cheerios, you get one of the LPs is in each of the boxes of Cheerios.
Perfect.
I don't know what's happening now.
I
It's
don't
pretty
either.
good. But he overdubbed all of the great cereal commercials from the late 1950s and early 60s on trombone, something like that. I can't remember. He told me, but I dozed off. So that's all I got to say about the Mary Papert School of Music.
So one more thing is that the Patreon folks are going to the bonus.
Keep it moving. Nothing to see here.
Desperately. The Patreon folks you're going to want to check out the bonus episode, which if you go to patreon.com/thebrassjunkies, then you can become a Patreon patron for as little as $1 per episode, which is a total of $26 a year. We are gunning for $100 per episode, which we are on our way. Thank you so much to everyone who has done that. It helps immensely, and it really you don't understand how much even just a $1 per episode donation means to us. It's really great. But this one, he ended up telling a story during the bonus episode, and if you're not a Patreon patron, you're going to get like about 85 stories in the regular interview, so you're not going to feel shortchanged. But he tells a story about a gig he played for a ribbon cutting with like a big movie star way back in the day, and a chimpanzee on roller skates, and like, yeah, it was it's you want to hear this one. So yeah, it's there was cursing involved, and yeah, it was good, and a couple of other nuggets as well of
when he ticked off a Burgermeister in Germany,
like ticked him off to the point where the dude left. So
stormed off.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So, and then I tell yet another story of Jeff Connor, eating poorly in foreign countries. So, but anyway, you can find out more info at patreon.com/thebrassjunkies. Thank you to everybody that's left us a rating and a review on iTunes. And thank you for everyone who shared the podcast with a friend. Share it with an enemy. We don't care. A download's a download. So I think without further ado, let's get to our phenomenal conversation that we had with tuba player extraordinaire Jonathan Dorn. And today on the podcast, we are joined by a tuba player who Lance and I were just joking that we could make this entire episode just be him listing all of the people through the years that he has performed or recorded with, and that it would take about 45 minutes and that we could sign off and then send everyone on their way. And we're only half kidding about that. Today we are joined by tuba player Jonathan Dorn. Jonathan, how are you?
I'm great. How you guys doing?
Great. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, we're doing awesome. Yeah, we're excited to have you. So, first of all, where do you live now?
I live in Lansdowne, Pennsylvania, which is right outside of Philadelphia.
Okay. And how long have you lived in the Philly area for? For a long time, right?
72 years.
What?
Wow. Sorry.
I like how you didn't say, "Hey, whippersnapper, it's been 72 years," but your tone said all of that in just 72. That in just your answer. That was good. Yeah, that's a long time. That's older than you are, right, Lance?
I barely. He just eked me out.
So Jonathan has performed with the Philadelphia Orchestra many times back in the day. I think you were like the top call sub for a long time, and he also has performed with Leon Redbone and recorded and performed with Leon Redbone, Don McLean, Anthony Braxton, Yusuf Lateef, Wilson Pickett, Henry Mancini. The list goes on and on and on. So how about you start by telling us how the hell you got a tuba in your hands in the first place, and then maybe like how you started playing with such heavyweights over so many decades.
Okay. Well, I remember as a young kid, I was living in Yeadon, Pennsylvania, which is right next to where I live now. And I wanted to play piano, so my parents bought me a piano. It was very nice of them. I took lessons from a lady in town. And then in fourth grade, we had an assembly program where there was a big music store in Philadelphia called Albert A. Connects. And they came and demonstrated instruments in the assembly program, which was, you would rent them to buy. and I saw a trumpet, and I said, "Well, that's a neat thing." And I told my father, and he said, "That's a lot of money, whatever," and nicely. And then the elementary music school teacher had this instrument called the mellophone. Looked like a French horn with trumpet valves, and it was in this little, like, actually looked like a miniature body bag. And he gave it to me, and I got lessons on it once a week. We went to the nurse's room in the elementary school when she was on break. And this, I have to say, this teacher, his name was Steve Ratek. He was a complete imbecile, and he just he turned pages. I went through the Rubank Elementary book really fast because I enjoyed the idea of playing a horn, and I could never please him. So I finally got to junior high school, and I was switched to the baritone horn. Nothing personal, Lance. And
no, I understand.
And I played it, but it didn't really make me insane or happily insane. So the band director at the time, Joe Carilla, said that there was only one tuba player in the band, played sousaphone, was graduating, and there were two openings if I wanted to change instruments. One was the bass drum, which really didn't appeal to me. So, and the other was tuba. Says, "Well, I'll try the tuba." And I have to say honestly that I had this humongous sousaphone on this chair stand, and I climbed inside and put the mouthpiece up to my lips, and I played a note, and something clicked inside of me. I just knew that this was the instrument that I wanted to play. I mean, all the other brass instruments were relatively, they're basically, they have a mouthpiece, they have valves and tubing and everything, but this one just clicked. And he taught me, and I went through all the Rubank books with him and stuff. And it got to a point where he said that he called my father. And he said, "I can't do anything more with him. He needs a real professional teacher." And then that's how I auditioned for Abe Torchinsky, who at the time was the principal tubist of the Philadelphia Orchestra, and spent many years with Abe. And he taught me so much stuff, amazing. To study with him and to watch. I used to go and watch the orchestra play as a kid, and just watching him play and listening to him was almost better than a lesson.
Right.
That's how I started on it. I mean, it clicked.
Well, so what's the road from there to Leon Redbone? That doesn't seem like I'm missing a few pages.
It wasn't a short road. It was. I started playing around 14 years old, and went through all the lessons, and wanted to immediately take over all the tuba work in Philadelphia. Well, that was a great thought, but not an intelligent one. And because there were other fine tubists that were doing the opera orchestra, two opera orchestras, and the ballet, and the pickup work, and young audiences, and I hung around and met people, and I got older and older, and into my teens and later teens, and things started opening up for me. I got called for a few things as a sub and worked my way into it. And then, I started at 18 years old. I got hired by young audiences, which they had like a woodwind quintet, brass quintets, opera group. And we went 2 mornings a week. We played 2 assembly programs in different high schools from Monday to Friday. It demonstrated the instruments, played a short concert. Then my name started getting around, and I eventually got both the chairs in both opera companies in Philadelphia, and then the Pennsylvania Ballet and the pickup work, and other things came. It's funny that you look at what freelancing was, and there was one prestige job that everybody wanted to play in every city. Was when Ringling Brothers came to town, you wanted to be the tuba player that got called for it. And I was one of those until I got called for it. It was.
It's like a killer, right?
It was unbelievable. I thought thought this was the greatest thing. You play the circus, that call you for everything else in the world. Well, it was like 2 shows a day, Monday to Friday, and constant playing. And on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, we had what we called 6-packs. It was 3 shows a day.
Ooh.
And everybody in the band, I don't care how great and strong a player they were, at the end of the 6-pack, you take your horn away from your face and look in the mouthpiece, and it was full of blood.
Oh my God.
Myself included.
Back when men were men.
Yeah. And I remember saying to myself one day, why the hell did I ever want this status on my resume? And I played it. Unfortunately, I played it well. I played it for years. And
Unfortunately, I played it well. That's a good sentence right
John,
there.
You did a great job last year. I only had one problem where I worked with Merrill Evans, who was a great bandsman. And just to work with him, he had his uniform and his coronet under his arm, and he would conduct and pick it up and play. It was just an honor and a thrill to play with such a great bandsman. Well, when he retired, because he was quite old, and a gentleman, I use that term lightly, named Bill Prine, Prun, which we call Mr. Prune, but his name was Prine. Anyhow, I had a small Miraphone 5-valve 184 C tuba at the time. And after the first rehearsal, he called me up to the bandstand on the break, and he said that I had a hell of a nerve. And I said, well, why? And he said, you got B-flat instruments all around you, and you're playing a C tuba. He said, that's disgraceful. So I said to him, I said, well, am I not playing? He said, oh, you're playing the parts. He said, but it's still disgraceful. And I said, fine. And I walked away from him. I had a friend who, Eddie Roman, who had all these brass instruments he collected. And one of them was a French sousaphone, small one, in C. And I called him up and I asked him, I'll pay you anything you want. I want to borrow it just for tonight's performance. And he brought it down. And I played it on the sousaphone. And Mr. Prine came up to me and shook my hand after the performance. He said, good man. He said, you got a B-flat sousaphone. He said, I appreciate it. I said, I got some real bad news for you, Mr. Prine. He said, what? I said, it's in C. And then I walked away from him. But I just thought, because he was so rude. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
I was playing the part. Whether I played it on a C tuba or whatever made no difference.
None.
So
it was disgraceful.
So I've sort of gone away from the question, but
no, that's good stuff,
that's okay.
man.
The circus thing reminds me. My grandfather was a drummer, and he lived about an hour and a half from Chicago, and so he played with the circus a number of times. Loved playing with the circus, and he was doing. I think it was Ringling Brothers, and they this is kind of funny to say out loud, and I never thought about it this way, but they were doing a circus show on the radio. So it was CBS radio, and they were going live. I don't know what people were looking at. I guess the little glowing light and listening to the excitement. But anyway, so what's supposed to happen is there's like my grandpa is supposed to, there's like an opening tune, and then he does this drum roll, and then the announcer says whatever, and then the elephants go by, and he does a crash, and then they're into the first tune. So it's live broadcast, and they do the opening tune, and he's doing the drum roll, and the announcer does his thing. The elephants come by, and my grandpa goes to hit the crash cymbal, and the elephant stopped and took a leak on his drum set. Then the show must go on. Covered in elephant piss.
I can remember just the circus was always at First Convention Hall in Philadelphia. Then the Spectrum was a big indoor sports stadium, and just parking your car in the employee part and walking past the elephants and everything every day, you had to like almost wear a mask. And I always felt sorry for them. I said, this is what they do. They put on hats and polka dot capes and stuff, and they run around in a circle, and that's what they do. Then they get on a train and they go to the next place and do it again. Nice
Yep.
life.
We were at Boston Brass. It was kind of like that.
Yeah, actually, it's a lot like being on the road.
A lot, yeah. Smell just as good too.
Worse.
Run in circles, poop everywhere. Go to the next town. just showbiz. My visual was quite specific when you're talking about an elephant pissing on your grandfather's drum set, because elephant piss does not come out slowly. I mean, there's like
yeah,
that comes out with some enthusiasm. So it's not just like a drum that got wet. There's going to be some serious splashing going on in like every possible
it's
direction.
Like a fire hose. I mean, I can remember,
right.
I was doing a lot of dates in Philly with this one guy that had costume dates, and at Christmas time we dressed up as this Dickens trio. Played Christmas carols, and we went to the Cherry Hill Mall in New Jersey, and there was a big parade to go in to Santa to show up and light the tree and everything. And there was these horses in front of us. This just reminded me of this. And I remember that one of the horses had to take a leak. Well, he really, I mean, took one, and we were like backing up because it was like this river of, the levee burst. we're running, we're still playing though, but we're running backwards. I think we're playing Santa Claus is Coming to Town, and then this horse let go, and I said, "Oh my God!" But fortunately, it never reached us because we had presence of mind to get the hell out of the way.
You should have been playing Deep River.
Did somebody throw a Deep River quote in? Yeah, that's the question. That would have been
ease on down the road. What else? You could do lots of that.
Oh, good.
Quick, ask a question. We're gonna keep talking about urinating animals.
About animals.
A little bit.
And then we're going to talk about Kufstein yet again. So let's not do that. So how did you meet Leon Redbull?
It was later on in my career, and I was maybe my late 20s or in early 30s, and I was doing a lot of studio work in New York, and I played on Leon's first album, and then his manager, who was his wife, called me up and asked me if I wanted to play some concerts with Leon, just the two of us, because he was, we had done a Saturday Night Live, and he was making some noise. So I said okay. So I remember the first one was it was great. It was in Philadelphia. It was at the University of Pennsylvania, and we opened up for Bonnie Raitt. And we rehearsed in the dressing room a couple of tunes. He would always go on by himself, and then I would, or whoever would come out 4 or 5 tunes later. So we did some tunes from the album, and went over quite well. And then they called me for like another one, and then there was like a week on the road. Well, that evolved into 10 years on the road with Leon. I mean, not 10 years completely, but I gave him a lot of time. We had two European tours, played all over this country, all over Canada, and then Australia and New Zealand. So it was a lot of time on the road. We would go on 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, maybe a little longer, then take a lot of time off. And we did Saturday Night Live 4 times. And I can remember the first European tour, first concert was in Bremen, Germany, at the Stadthalle. And he went on by himself, as I said, did 4 or 5 tunes, and then he would mumble something and motion stage left, and I would come on with my tuba and a glass of whiskey in my exactly what he would say. So I'm in Germany, which is big on tuba players. So this is a major concert hall in the town of Bremen, and I stroll on with my tuba. Well, the crowd went insane. I mean, they were hooting, screaming, yelling, applauding for, and no exaggeration, about 4 to 5 minutes. Well,
Oh my
Leon didn't
gosh.
take this real well because I mean, I
Uh-oh.
got a bigger ovation than he did, and it wasn't my fault, Your Honor. I just I strolled onto a stage in Germany with a tuba, and so
Right.
That's the opening to a
right,
joke right
you know,
there.
Yeah.
and then we walked into a bar with a monkey, and everything was good. But anyhow,
That's right.
And then the monkey pissed everywhere.
everything
That's right.
calmed down, and he looks at me, and he quietly says to me, and I'll do it in my best Leon voice. He said, "I see you got relatives here in Germany, Jonathan." And actually, I knew exactly what he meant by
Yes,
that
you
because I'm
do.
Jewish, and I figured, well, yeah, I
Oh
said,
no.
well, that was a nice comment, you
Oh,
son of a gun, and
oh,
but
oh.
he was taken aback that I understood what happened. It had nothing to do with me per se. It was just the fact that they thought he was going to be here by himself. He started singing and playing the guitar on this big stage with
Mhm.
the spotlight on him. And then a tuba player comes out in Germany and they went berserk. But it was,
Right.
it took him a long time to get over that. Actually, didn't speak to me for a couple of days. But oh, yeah,
Oh no.
he was a very unusual man. Musically, working with him was phenomenal for me. I mean, it just to be a tuba player and play with a man singing all these 1920s and 30s songs on acoustic guitar was musically wonderful. I mean, he didn't play by any of the rules. I mean, there were no bar lines, and you just went with them, and it was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of recordings with him, and a lot of countries, and he was difficult to be with, but I survived 10 years, so that has to say something, I guess.
That's longer than Lance has survived any of his 9 different.
That's true. That's true.
He
Yeah.
usually quits after 7.
Well,
Yeah.
seven's good. 10, and I finally one day I got out after I got out of the tour bus. We came back from run out, and I just looked at it and said, I said, I'll see you. And that was it. That was over 30 years ago. I had enough.
Wow.
Yeah.
No kidding.
I'm not gonna put him down. It's not the gentlemanly thing to do. At times
Sure,
it
sure,
got
sure, sure.
quite difficult. And I must say, just being on the road in general, and you're traveling with a bunch of other musicians and a road manager, and you're doing 2 shows a night, 7 nights a week in a different town, country, or city. It's not easy, but you have to approach it to understand this is what you do, make the best of it. Having said that, it's still not
Mm-hmm.
easy to do that, and a lot of stars, or quote stars, are extremely difficult to deal with. We,
Yeah, the road
but
is hard. The road is hard.
even
Road is not. It's
oh
fun
yeah,
that
even
one
at
day.
its best, it's very hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you come up? I know you made it through the Rubank books. So did you come up playing both? Charts, and then you picked up changes and started laying down bass lines at the same time, or how did you get
Well,
into laying down bass lines?
that's a
I was
that's a
wondering the
great
same thing.
that's a great question because I have a good story for that. I always played charts, in the classical end of it, the operas and the ballets and all that stuff, and then did a lot of recording between the Philadelphia recordings in New York. When I was 20 years old, there was a chain of clubs in this country called Your Father's Mustache, banjo band, peanut shells on the floor and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And they called Abe Turchinsky. They were opening a club in Philadelphia and they needed a tuba player. And they were opening in the summertime, and Abe recommended me. He told me about it, and I got the call from him, and they gave me the opening night. Well, I knew nothing about this. I never really had. I knew nothing about the club. I show up opening night, and they give me my uniform, which was a white shirt, shoelace string tie, white pants, a red and white striped vest, and a pretend straw hat. So I'm on the bandstand, this little curved bandstand, and this trombone player. He brought all special. The owner brought all special people in from his clubs all over the country, and I'm waiting for them to pass out the books, arrangements. Remember, I was 20 years old, and lights go down. Everybody gets on the bandstand, and the owner of the club, Joel Schiavone, terrific banjo player and crowd motivator, with one of the worst stutters I ever heard in my life, but that was his problem. It was no big deal. And the books still hadn't been passed out, and the man looks at me and he says, happy days are here again. Two C's and an E flat. Well, they were like words that absolutely made my heart stop. I didn't know what he was talking about. Besides the stutter, well, there were no arrangements. There was eight bars on the banjo on this band, and my initial time at the Mustache at the beginning, I don't know why they didn't fire me, because I just played, I thought I should play. But the trombone player and the banjo player, Sonny Helmer, was the trombone player, came in from St. Louis, and he was an amazing Dixieland player. And he invited me to his apartment that he got in Philly and played records and taught me about changes and fake books. Well, after about 3 weeks, I finally got it. But it was, this guy, Sonny Helmer, trombone player, he would, at the end of every set, there were 4 sets a night, he would balance this, stay with me here, he would balance a pitcher of beer on his head, take off his shoes, put the slide of the trombone between his big toe and the other toe, and stand on one foot and play the last tune on the set, take a solo, and then chug the pitcher of beer and never fall down. He did this 4 times a night.
He is my spirit animal.
His trick was he would take two pitchers and back and forth to get all the carbonation out of the beer. It made it easier for him to chug. But unfortunately,
so he chugged a whole pitcher of flat beer.
He didn't take the alcohol out of it.
Right, sure.
And but he he did it every night, never fell down. It was an unusual place, but I learned a lot from working there. I mean, I learned how to ad lib, and then it took me on to other clubs like the Red Garter and Mickey Finn's and the Skidoo, and it got for a while where it's all I got. It was everything else I did. I had all these banjo clubs. I had to send a lot of subs in, and one of my first sub I got was Bob Stewart, lived in Philadelphia. Nice. We were buddies, and I called him one night and said, Bob, I said, I can't do a lot of dates on the Mustache. And he finally took over for me. And when Bob left Philly and went to New York to get a job as a school teacher before he established himself as one of the finest jazz players in the world, he got work at the Mustache in New York to help him eat every day. And he always thanks me. He said, thanks. He said, because if it wasn't for you, he said, I would have starved. But he was a great sub and he's a great guy. We still keep in touch today. He's a marvelous player.
He'd be a great guest for this podcast. He's awesome.
He has so much to say, musically and personally.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Amen. I've only talked to him once, and he couldn't have been any more gracious. But I'm a super fan of his. He's awesome. Sam Palafian used to play with your father's Mustache as well. Yeah. And I'm sure there's been a number of banjo players, but I thought I was losing my mind, but I just looked up the show notes from my other podcast when I interviewed Sam, and he talked about how the banjo player from your father's Mustache, a decade later, when he had played with this guy, got him introduced to the guys to the person booking the horns for Pink Floyd's The Wall. So that was kind of right. So from your father's Mustache, add 10 years, and then the banjo player was like, yeah, call this Sam guy. And then suddenly Sam is playing in the orchestra on The Wall. So, yeah, which is similar. That kind of story would fit very well into your career story. It's just kind of like crazy random crap that doesn't make any sense, yet it makes perfect sense. You guys have had very similar careers in that regard. So I want to hear about playing on Saturday Night Live. You said you played it 4 times. I know one of them at least was like super early. It was like 1976. So we're talking Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi and Chevy Chase and Gilda Radner. I mean, that's like the glory days.
The original cast. I think the first time was 1975 with the host was she's passed away, Jill Clayburgh. Mm-hmm. And then
see, I had to have seen you because I remember. I mean, that's when I first saw Leon Redbone was on those shows, staying up too late when I was in whatever grade. Let's see, 75. Yeah, I was up way too late because I would have been 8, but I just knew that the music was cool and it was hilarious. So my parents would fall asleep and I would get up and watch TV. So I saw you. That's cool. It's just amazing me.
If it was in the fall, I might have seen you because I was alive. But if it was before August 8th, then I didn't. Since that's when I was born.
Wow. I'm August 11th. But we did it again in 75. We did it in 76 with Elliot Gould. Then we did it 77-ish or so with Buck Henry. And then in 1981 or 82, we did it with Bruce Dern was the host. And it was
how cool
great host, great guy. And so just doing that show, I mean, made me, and I'm not bragging, like after the first one, I can remember I was doing studio work in New York. I'm walking down Fifth Avenue, and people are stopping me on the street like a week later and saying, You're that guy. You're Saturday Night Live guy. You're that play a big thing, that horn. And I said, yeah, thank you very much. And I got recognized. And then I got other people called me for recordings and stuff, just because I was on one of the most amazing shows in the world.
Well, that's back when everybody would watch a show like that because there was so many limited options. So everybody would
11:30 and 1 o'clock in the morning during those early days of when Saturday Night was a great show, everything stopped.
Sure.
And after the show, there was always an after party at one of the top restaurants. They would buy out for the evening, and then the whole cast would come, and you would just hang and eat food and drink and do other things. Hang with Belushi and Aykroyd and
read scripture.
Chevy. Belushi was a wonderful human being. I'm so angry at him for what he did to himself, but shit happens. But he, am I allowed to say that?
Mm-hmm.
I just
did. You're fine.
He was great. Chevy was great. They were all, and we were just hanging there. You got limousines to go to these after parties, and the sun would come up, and they take it back to your hotel, and people are going to work, and you're just baked, and it was fun. I mean, it did a lot for me musically and personally. My favorite one was the last one in 1982. We had a band with myself, Leon, Peter Eklund, and Vince Giordano on banjo and bass saxophone. Musically, I love that. I liked the first one with me in the top hat, and the other one with, but musically, that one really worked for me. Great show. Now I watch it. It's one of the worst shows on television. It's not funny.
Yeah, it's not.
Well, it's missing you.
It's missing good musical guests and good comedians, but I don't want to.
Other than that,
go on my soapbox about that. But I must say before we go on, if we have any time, I listened to you guys on YouTube, and the one album you have, such wonderful playing together. You do that one klezmer thing.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that's Andrew's band. The
how's that called?
Divertimento number 2 is marvelous playing.
Oh yeah, Yeah, thank you.
Well,
Thank you
actually,
very
thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's one of my
Thank
former
you,
students
because
wrote that.
I listen to a lot of tuba stuff, and I have on Facebook a fan page with over 3,000 videos and audio clips. A lot of mine, but others, and that is going on my fan page. That is such great playing musically.
Thanks, man.
I
Hey,
had to say
thank you
that
very
tonight.
much.
See,
Well, that's very nice of you.
we don't have enough guests yet telling us how great we are, Lance. We got to start.
I forgot. We need to add that to
We
the-
got to start
that's
vetting
right.
people. We're going to ask you about the Jens Lindemann gag. We need you to compliment us and like really sell it at some point. You can decide where it goes into the interview. You just got to make sure you mention that we're great. So,
Well, you got to look up Fernando Dados is the guy who wrote that
We'll do it.
Diverto Demento, Duo Divertimento.
he will. Yeah, you have a homework assignment, Mr. Dorn. You have to look up Fernando Dados, Deddos. He will scare the shit out of you. He's a euphonium player who is also a composer. He's just it's unbelievable.
I just wrote it. I wrote it down on my tablet.
Yeah, I'm glad that you
regret it.
listened to us before you listened to him. So that's good. That's good. In the other direction,
grade on it.
in the other order, you'd be like, yeah, I like what those guys were trying to do there. So I want to go ahead, Lance. I've been asking all the questions.
Well, I just I want to know when your foray into being a chef started and what all happened there.
Well,
How
after
did that
30
come
some
along?
years as a tubist, I had done everything I had started out to do when I was, dreaming of what I wanted to do, and the business was changing. To give you a quick idea, uh, one contractor I worked for Broadway shows and stuff, and the Music Man was coming into Philadelphia, and I was on his list. And I called him to ask him what the dates were to see if they coincided with my schedule. And he said, "I have some bad news for you." I said, "Well, what?" He said, "Well, the show's coming in, but," he said, "it's scored for 4 synthesizers and 4 trombones." Well, I can't tell you what I said to him
Golly.
because I know I can't say that on this interview.
That's called a
Really?
target of opportunity right
Wow, 4 synthesizers and
Yeah, I
4
said
trombones. All right.
I can say that sucks. But anyway, other things were changing. I mean, with synthesized things and stuff, and plus being on the road, there's certain things when you're a freelancer that people will wait for you to come back, and other people will say, "Well, he's out for 6 weeks. I ain't gonna wait for him. I don't care how he plays." And I understood, and just the way it was
Hmm.
changing. So I always had this passion for cooking, and uh, my wife had a friend that worked with her that worked at Villanova University and said they're looking for cooks. So I went and had an interview. And I was still playing here and there, and I got a job as a general cafeteria worker and a grill cook, and it was fun, sort of. And then I worked my way to become one of their chefs. And I did a lot of research and watched a lot of videos, read a lot of cookbooks. I have to say that I was in where I was actually the boss, where I put the tuba in front of my face and I played and nobody told me what to do. I knew what to do. Occasionally conductors got a little bitchy, but then I got, as they do,
As they do.
and I got into
Not my wife, though. I love you, honey.
I got into this world of rules, and like every 5 feet there was another manager telling me what to do. Well, that was difficult for me to deal with because I was basically an outlaw. But I learned when to keep my mouth shut and when not to, and worked my way up and survived 20 years at Villanova without getting fired. Close, but
Whoa.
close.
There you go.
I never, I didn't, kiss anybody's forehead or whatever. They cleaned that one up good. But you know, I, I played the game my way, and after 20 years and 30 some years in the
That should be a song.
music business, I decided I've been working for 50 years. Time to retire. So I'm retired now, going into my 7th year, enjoying life immensely with my wife, Denise, um, doing what I want to do. I have five tubas and a chimbasso that I play around with. I don't do much playing outside. I do Tuba Christmas in Philly, and Carol Yanchu is the principal tuba in Philadelphia Orchestra. Has a play in every spring that I do that, and it's enough for me right now. I might like to do some. Well, people want me to record some stuff, but I told them, well, when you're ready, call me and I'll see if I'll do it.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
That's
and
great. While we're still recording, I must
thing is all right.
Thank a couple people, my people from my early days in high school. Joseph Carrillo, my band director, for putting me in the right direction, and Ross Shire, who was the general music teacher, which I still talk to once a week. Lovely man, and really helped mold me into a great musician. He was really very paramount in what I've become. So I have to say that, I have influences of all the tuba players, Don Butterfield, Harvey Phillips, Bill Barber. I can name 400 of them, but that's not. Any more questions? Okay.
I'm you're preaching to the choir here, because I feel like music
Absolutely.
educators are lifesavers, and
Yep.
it happened for me, and it sounds like it happened for you. So that's one of the reasons we do this ridiculous thing.
Yeah.
And tell fart jokes.
We get to and we get to confuse people, because our most podcast episodes have like really inspirational parts, and then other parts where it's the equivalent of talking about animals pissing all over the place. So it's like, you gotta. Some people are weird and they like both of those things, like Lance and I do, and it sounds like you do. But other people have to wade through. No pun intended. Thank you. Yeah, the Deep River stuff, in order to get to that guy talks to his general music teacher from his childhood every week. So we like torturing those people. So I got before I ask you, I think you're going to be able to provide some incredibly insightful advice to our dear friend Jens, just because of all your experiences. But I do want to hear about you recording with Anthony Braxton, who I bet is somebody that a lot of people listening don't know. I'm a huge fan of his. Can you tell people who that is, and then Anthony, what that was like?
Is an amazing. I don't want to use the wrong words. I guess his style is. I guess might be avant-garde, but freeform jazz. And I got called in 1976. He was doing an album called Creative Orchestra 1976. And it had all these superstar players that played that kind of music. And we rehearsed every day for a week at a rehearsal hall, Bill's Rehearsal Hall in New York. And we recorded every night. And it was an amazing experience, because a lot of the stuff was notated, but there were like triangles and symbols and directions, and he didn't really explain verbally too much what he wanted, but we sort of got it. Have you heard any of that recording?
I'll tell you what, I will send it to you
tonight. It's on YouTube. I'll send it to you. And he played this contrabass saxophone, is one of the instruments he played on. It was like 7 feet tall, and he had to climb up on this stepladder to play it. And I remember there was across the studio was a great studio man, Selden Powell, who's not longer with us, but played with everybody. Great saxophone player. And we sat across from each other. And when Anthony got up on the stepladder and honked out these lower than subway tones, he started to laugh. We ruined the whole take. And then they took a break, and I said to Selden, I said, we have to make a deal with each other. I says, no more eye contact. Because it was just so bizarre. He climbed onto this stepladder to play this Green Giant saxophone, and blurt out some notes that nobody could tell what they were. But it was, if you listen to the album that I'll send you, a lot of it makes sense. There were some great players. John Faddis played piccolo trumpet on it. All kinds of people,
Nice.
and I enjoyed it. And Anthony is still working, still playing, still recording,
Yep.
and actually he's.
Yep.
I guess you could call him an underground superstar. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually a really good way to put that. There's a whole bunch of people who have never heard his name, and then there are people who can, who would recognize him if he walked by him on the street. So yeah, it's kind of underground superstar. I like that. I had a friend, his freshman year, my sophomore year in college. His name was his name was, unless he's changed it, his name is Andrew Choate, and he was into all of that kind of music, and he played me Anthony Braxton like the first week of class that year, and it just totally blew my mind, and just shoved down a whole bunch of barriers to what I thought music could be, and it just opened. And then of course I went to Northwestern, so I went with him to a lot of free jazz, and avant-garde stuff in Chicago, and saw Ken Vandermark and some of the best Chicago musicians in that corner, and that's one of the best cities in the world for that stuff. And so I have a real soft spot for Anthony Braxton. And he wrote his composition number 19 is titled 100 Tubas. He wrote a piece for
I was part of
100
that. That
tubas.
was most unusual.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I had to ask you about the step ladder and trying not to giggle. That's I figured that you would have a good story. It was just a hunch. So speaking of, I also have a hunch that you might be able to help our dear friend Jens Lindemann, who's one of the best brass players in the world, but he's been really going through some tough times of late, and with his chop problem. So I'm wondering if you might be able to give us give him some advice before his mouthpiece is filled with blood from a 6-pack.
I'll try. I don't know a lot about this gentleman, but I don't know what his chop problems are. But he's the one that hit reply all. Oh boy,
that's the dude.
That's
the one.
He's the one.
I did that once at Villanova University. I got this email that I thought was quite nasty, and I meant to reply to the person that sent it to me, but and I sent a nastier one back. And unfortunately, hit reply all, and it took me years to live that down from the director of personnel, who probably hasn't forgiven me yet.
Well, that's pretty good.
That is pretty good.
So your advice is to don't hit reply all
in life.
That's pretty good advice.
That's profound. That's pretty deep.
Pretty
deep. It's metaphysical.
Yeah, this has been awesome.
I have to tell you,
Boy,
I'm loving this because
go ahead.
I've done a lot of interviews. The last one I did was absolutely painful. I did it with, and I'm even going to tell you the name of the guy that interviewed me. His name is Jake Feinberg.
Oh no!
And he's a big disc jockey out in Arizona, and he has interviewed every famous jazz musician in the world. He got in touch with me, and it was a phoner. Well, it was painful because he didn't do his homework, and he at the end of it, and it was painful. He said he has this thing before we finish the interview that it's called "Name That Tune," and he said something you played on, and he played this thing I never played on. I didn't recognize it. There was a commercial break, and he came back. He said, "What is it?" I said, "Well," I guess I'm not going to win the year's supply of rice-a-roni because I said I have no idea who or what that is. I said I know one thing. I said I'd never played on that. And then then I guess he said, "Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Bob, or whatever." It was just. And I've done some interviews that are very nice, printed ones, but I have to say, and I'm not blowing any smoke, gentlemen. This has been the most enjoyable one I've ever done.
Gentlemen.
There you go.
Oh,
that's
so nice of you.
I've listened to your interview. I listened to your interview with Carol Jansch, who's a great buddy of mine, and a lot of other ones. David Silverman, who is a great buddy of mine, and actually did 2 caricatures of me that he sent me, and which are prized possessions. But this interview with you, the two, absolutely is the interview I've wanted to do forever.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much.
I don't know what to say. We'll have to have you back on. Yeah, you'll be back. Be careful what you. We're like a bad penny.
What?
You just get a random call at 3:00 on a Friday. Hey, what are you doing in an hour?
You call me and I'll talk.
There you go.
All right.
So we're gonna have Jonathan hang on for a few extra minutes here to which I bet are gonna be gold for the bonus episode for our Patreon patrons. But man, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, Jonathan. We owe you one, and that is going to do it for another really great episode, if I may say so myself, of the Brass Junkies. You've been listening to The Brass Junkies on the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. If you would like to help support the podcast in order to make more episodes like this one possible, please visit pedalnotemedia.com/donate for more details. Also, be sure to check out our latest recording, The Brass Recording Project, at brassrecordingproject.com. The Brass Junkies is produced by Will Houchin. Executive producers are Andrew Hitz and Lance LaDuke. This has been a presentation of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network.